This is the Idaho Right to Life, the star.
And on your table is the stars. You'll see them like right in front of your place. And the one with the little white baby image gets a drink. So look for the one with white, otherwise you can keep the other one. But if you find the one with the white image of an infant, you get a free drink. Right to life.
Just kind of tee up the night on something that you guys can all be thinking on and just really pondering. But recently, I was asked to be a judge on a mock panel for a young gal who was about to compete at Miss Idaho Teen USA. And we were running through questions and asking her different pieces of what her potential judges could ask her. And towards the end, in our last interview, we said, okay, we're going to hit you with all the political questions to prepare you for what you could encounter when you walk into that room. And the gal next to me, who was another mock judge, she brought up the issue of abortion. And as we all find in our daily lives, this topic comes up many times, especially now with the state of our culture and where things are at in America post-Dobbs. So she brought it up and she said, well, how would you answer the question on abortion? If, now in Idaho, post Roe v. Wade, in this world that we're in, now we have so many limitations in Idaho. What do you think about that? And you could tell that this girl was really thinking about it and wasn't sure what she believed about abortion. And this older gal, who was also being a mock judge, she was maybe in her 50s, she said, well, how would you answer this? So the other judge instantly went on her tangent of what her answer would be, and she basically just started saying, I would walk into Governor Little's office and say, how dare you tell women what to do with their bodies? And how dare you, legislators, try to legislate something that is between a woman and her doctor? And she went on and on. She got really heated. And I'm sitting there, this very pro-life person, just kind of letting her talk. But you could see this young 17-year-old girl who you clearly did not have an opinion before this encounter. And I couldn't sit back and let that be the opinion that she heard and ran with. So I let her kind of finish her spiel, and towards the end she said, and I just want to be clear, I'm not pro-abortion. I just don't think that this is okay. That women should be able to decide. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I let her finish, and then the girl's eyes turned to me. And you could just tell she was thinking, well, what would you say? And so I just graciously said, I'm going to share because my opinion is very different from hers. And to be honest with you, I don't believe that abortion is the solution to whatever situation and circumstance a woman finds herself in. When we look at the cases of rape and all these exceptions, which she had brought up as reasons, I said, abortion doesn't solve those issues for her, whatever situation she's in. And when over 50% of abortions are repeat abortions, that tells us that whatever situation she was in that led her into the abortion facility the first time was not solved by that first abortion. And you could just see the relief in this girl's eyes. And so the tension kind of dropped in the room, and we kind of went on talking. And basically it came down to, look, you need to do your research. Don't just listen to what she's saying. Don't just listen to what I'm saying, but really ponder and contemplate this and do your own research. And it was just a really amazing encounter. But this is the situation of our culture that we're in this post-Dobbs America that we're living in. Everywhere we go, regardless of the situation, when you're thinking, okay, I'm done with the pro-life event, now I'm just going to go get my groceries at the grocery store, and I'm not going to be talking about abortion when I go to the grocery store, and what do you know, it comes up somewhere, right? And that's the state of where we're at. But with what's happening in Idaho right now, and things that are upcoming, which Adam may allude to, we have to be prepared personally to have those conversations with people on that one-on-one level, but also to stand up in the public square and speak the truth, because there is so much misinformation out there about what the state allows or doesn't allow. And they've got the mainstream media in their back pocket. Planned Parenthood is very active. And so we're up against this Goliath, even in Idaho. And what we have to do moving forward is to protect the win of the Dobbs decision. We have to protect life. That's what it comes down to. And so I hope that tonight will inspire all of you to recognize what can be done and what all of us should move forward and do to get involved, and take it upon us to speak the truth no matter what. So without further ado, I do want to introduce our speaker, Adam Schwend. I used to work with Adam, and he works for Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. He's the Western Regional Director of State Affairs, and I consider Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America the political muscle of the pro-life movement. He leads the policy and political efforts for SBA in Western states from the coast to Iowa. And most recently, Adam served as Director of Government Affairs for the largest professional association in Nebraska and as Chief of Staff in the Oregon Legislature. Adam studied political science and music at Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon, and sacramental theology at St. Joseph College in Standish, Maine. He currently lives in Lincoln, Nebraska with his wife, Rebecca, and their 5 children. Please welcome Adam Schwend.
Thank you, Lisa. I guess I am Adam Schwend, and I am very obviously not Miss Idaho, Mrs. Idaho. And you know, this is a very serious topic that we work in, and I like to be as joyful as I possibly can and joke and have a little fun, so it takes the edge off of some of the work that we do. So, as Lisa mentioned, I am the Western Regional Director of State Affairs, and I often get the question, well, what is Western? And I usually get that people from Iowa wondering why the heck I'm there. As she said, I mentioned, I handle political and policy work from Iowa to the West Coast, but not in Texas. It's too big. We have so many specialty works there. But my favorite state to come to is Idaho. I know what you're thinking. You think, oh yeah, I'm going to say that to all the states. No. As you heard, I spent most of my life in Oregon. I worked in the Oregon legislature, ran campaigns in Oregon, and I love so much about Idaho. You have wonderful people, wonderful legislators, wonderful pro-life advocates. As much as I love Nebraska, it's a beautiful place. The prairies and corn, it's beautiful. But I do greatly miss the natural beauty and wonder of the Northwest, and I get that by coming to Idaho without the fentanyl and homeless people that I get in Oregon. So I love coming here to Idaho. So thank you very much for having me. It's something I'm really looking for. How many of you listen to podcasts? Great. How many of you have heard of or listened to the podcast Ruthless? One. Well, I could just completely lie and no one would know. Ruthless podcast is a really great podcast for those who like to be on like the insider workings, like the hot dog making of Republican Washington politics. And it's a really interesting podcast to listen to. I encourage you to check it out. I encourage you to check it out when your children are near you and you're not offended by foul language. Because if you can be on that, it's a really interesting podcast. But one of the questions that they ask all other interviewers is they believe that the drive of humanity is divided into kind of 2 groups. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. What do they mean by that? The thrill of victory are people who are driven by winning. They want to win. Their focus is to get the win. That's what gives them that elation, and they celebrate. And if you're a sports fan, a great example of that is Phil Mickelson. He loves to win. He loves to celebrate. On the other side, the agony of defeat. Those are people who are driven by a fear of losing. losing just ruins their life. The thought of losing drives them to work harder so they don't lose. Good example of that, again, another sports analogy, is Michael Jordan. He won 6 NBA championships and celebrated each one of them for about 6 seconds. And then moved on to, okay, what do I got to do to put my hand back on the plow to win my next one? So, which one are we? I find that in the pro-life movement, we're often the latter. We tend to be in the agony of defeat people, and it's not a surprise when we lose, babies die. It's not a surprise that we tend to be agony of defeat people. But one of the negatives of that is that we don't celebrate our wins enough. We don't celebrate those amazing victories that we've had. And I tell you, over the last couple of years, we've had some incredible victories. So let's talk about a few of those. Let's celebrate. I'm sorry, I usually look at my notes, but I don't have them. Let's start with the most obvious one. Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health. Because the Supreme Court sent the debate and decisions around abortion back to the people and their elected representatives, we are now protecting 200,000 lives a year in the United States. Absolute 1,500 lives a year are here in Idaho. We should celebrate that. You know, back in Nebraska, our Right to Life chapter, she started something really interesting. She started to have the gala and the march like most states have. But one of the things she started was something she calls Life Fest. Every year around Dobbs, she just has a big party. It didn't raise money, doesn't do anything, but she has music and games and food trucks. And it's a big celebration of just victories for life. Those are the sorts of celebrations I really would love us to do more in the movement. So, obviously the big one. Second, there are over 2,700 pregnancy health organizations in this country. And most of them, no, they're all over all of our states, right? You live in a town of 500, you live in a town of 5 million, you're gonna find pregnancy resource centers somewhere in your towns. They are in all 50 states, and they are in rural, urban, suburban areas. If a woman needs the services that a pregnancy health organization is going to be able to provide, she's going to be able to find that pretty darn close to home no matter where she's at. Counter that to Planned Parenthood. There's under 600 of those. And they are all in urban cores or suburban areas, right? So if you are in rural Idaho, and, well, I know at least in Nebraska, there are people who live 6 or 7 hours from an urban or suburban area. So if you want to go to Planned Parenthood and take advantage of some of these services that they supposedly provide, a woman has to drive hours upon hours. That's not the way it is with pregnancy health organizations, and we should celebrate our pregnancy health organizations more often than we do, even those of us who celebrate them a lot. In 2022, pregnancy health organizations provided 16 million client sessions. 16 million client sessions. So what's a client session? It's just a meeting with a client providing the service. So maybe a woman walks in, has her first pregnancy test, and that's a client service. She comes back with her boyfriend or her husband and goes through some of the parenting classes that they provide. That's a service. They come back after the baby's born, brings the baby, gets diapers, gets clothes. That's another service. Planned Parenthood, how many times do they see her? Once. And those pregnancy health organizations in 2022 provided over $350 million in products and services for free. For free. We should celebrate that. Absolutely. Talk about some of our other policy celebrations, right? Here in Idaho, you had your trigger law. It went into effect immediately after some stuff. It went into effect essentially right after Dobbs came down. There are a few states who didn't have that, so they had to come into special session immediately across the country. Indiana, West Virginia came in and had special sessions to enact 9-month full protections for babies in their states. Heartbeat laws. Florida and South Carolina came in and in their next session and introduced and passed heartbeat laws like you guys had here before you had your full protection. Iowa had actually had that bill for some time, but got a ruling from their Supreme Court that essentially said, well, because Roe was enacted, we don't think you really meant it. So they said, well, hold my beer. They came back into special session and passed it by an even higher level than they did the first time. By the way, pray for our friends in Iowa. We expected their Supreme Court, who again enjoined their law immediately, we expect their Supreme Court is going to rule on their heartbeat bill as early as Friday. So we could have another state that has many protections for babies after the 6-week level. And then Nebraska, my home state, and North Carolina, we had 12-week protections. And this is a little stingy. There was a fight in both of these states who wanted heartbeat laws. They really wanted to pass heartbeat laws. They could not get them done. So, after we all went back into our corners and cooled off for a little bit, negotiations came back because leaving the law where it was, which is essentially in both of those states at viability, was not acceptable to us. So this is what we could get done. But this isn't where we're settling, right? One of the things I'm proud of with Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America is that our belief is that we should save as many babies as we can right now. Amen. Right? We save as many babies as we can right now. And if we don't save them all, we're going to save some more tomorrow. Right? So just because you don't think, you don't get them all saved, you don't have total and complete protection the first time, that doesn't mean you're settling. It just means you've got more work to do, more to celebrate. But we should celebrate all of these gestational protections that happened just over these last 2 years. Some states had to come and do a little bit of tweaking around their laws, including Idaho, North Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, and Wyoming. They were able to get that done. And in many of these states, Idaho, Tennessee, and Tennessee now have those in place. North Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming are under injunction in court, but we're fighting. And we will continue to fight until every single baby is protected. And yes, absolutely. But we should continue to celebrate these. Other things we've done throughout the country are laws that acknowledge the humanity and the dignity of the unborn. Passing born alive laws. You've probably heard of some of these laws that just says that, hey, if you have an abortion and the baby survives, you gotta give it care. We shouldn't have to fight over that, but we do. We do, and when we win, we should celebrate. And we have throughout the country. And preventing dismemberment abortions, this is something we've done even before Roe, or before Dobbs came about, was trying to change the way abortions are done. So if you're going to do abortions, can we at least agree you shouldn't rip the baby into pieces? Can we agree on that? And in a lot of places we have. And some of these things are really important to realize that the fight that we're in, we've had, as was mentioned earlier, we've had 50 years of the culture of death. Maybe more, right? We cannot expect to have total, complete utopia in 24 months, right? So when we get frustrated and weary of the work that we're doing, we have to remember that our culture has been programmed to believe that abortion is a medical procedure to help women. They've been programmed for that. It's really easy for us to get frustrated and angry, but it just means that we've got more work to do. we've got more hearts and minds to change. Another thing that we've done is working on the prohibition or at least regulation of chemical abortion or abortion drugs. In the United States, about 60% of abortions are done via abortion drugs. And in rural states, and at least in rural areas of states, that's upwards of 80 to 90%. It is a horrible, horrible regimen of drugs that we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. But some of the states have succeeded in regulating how these drugs can be distributed, how they're regulated, and at least trying to limit the damage that is done in some of these states. Let's talk about some challenges. We celebrated enough. But we do need to talk about some challenges. I want to talk about two challenges that are facing the pro-life movement in vast portions of the country. And as I just mentioned, abortion drugs is one of the big ones. And it's one of the big ones because it's not being used as it was sold to the American people, right? Like any drug, you go to your doctor gives you your drugs, and in something like this, the way it was originally approved, that you took them in front of your doctor. And the reason is the side effects that go with this regimen of drugs. There's two pills for the most part. One that cuts off progesterone and essentially starves the baby, and then the second one is taken several days later to expel the baby. That was originally done with a doctor. Well, successive, forgive me, Democratic presidencies have weakened those requirements, saying, well, you can take that first pill with a doctor, but then you can take the second one, and you can have the comfort of your own home. The loneliness of your own home is more likely. And then, using the regulations around COVID, the Biden administration says, well, you don't need to have a doctor at all. We'll just send them to you in the mail. That's illegal. But that doesn't seem to stop them. So these are some of the problems that we are facing around chemical abortion. And one of the questions that is always asked, well, how do we stop them coming from the mail? I don't know. We're certainly fighting it. We're certainly trying. But I tell you, the one thing that we really need that will get us going on this issue a lot easier is a president and an attorney general who will actually enforce the laws that are on the books. If we had those, we'd be able to get down that aisle a lot faster. But beyond voting, what can we do? One of the things that was brought up today is we need to talk to people. We need to talk to people about this. We need to inform ourselves about what it actually is. If you don't know how chemical abortion works, I don't blame you. I've always been pro-life. I've volunteered in the pro-life movement most of my life, but I didn't know how this worked until I came to work for Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. So if you don't know what it is, don't feel bad. I've got a service for you. AbortionDrugFacts.com. There's a QR code that'll take you there. At least I think it will. I didn't test it. It'll take you somewhere, but if it doesn't take you to abortiondrugfacts.com, you can go to abortiondrugfacts.com. It is a site done by the Charlotte Lozier Institute, which is Susan B. Anthony's research arm, and it will arm you with an incredible amount of scientific facts.
It takes you there.
Excellent. I mean, it could have taken me to ESPN.com because I was looking at that while I was doing this too. So. This will take you to a great deal of information about chemical abortion and what it does and the facts about it. And I think that's something that's incredibly important for us to arm ourselves with. So when we're having these conversations, that's one of the great things about Dobbs coming down is that we can talk about this now. For years, we were just shut down and said, hey, Roe, shh, you don't get to have an opinion because Roe. We can talk about this now. That means we can educate people now. It's not just the media and it's not just Democratic politicians talking about it. Now we can have a conversation because we have the power and our elected representatives have the power to regulate these things. So, in order to change the hearts and minds that we need to do to keep the ball going down the field, that was a terrible mixed metaphor. We need to be armed with information and facts and know what we're talking about. Because what the left and the media love is chaos and confusion. And if we have knowledge and facts and science, which we do, then their chaos and confusion just is screaming into our ear. So use this information. I really encourage you, particularly around this issue. I think in Idaho, I don't know what the numbers are, but I can guarantee you it's higher than the national average because of the rural nature of the state. This is the thing that is sucking up my life right now. And God bless Idaho that you have not had to have this yet. But here are 7 pro-life states. And there are 4 pro-abortion states who are also having it. Well, 5 now, after this week. But these are pro-life states, right? This shouldn't be a problem for us, except for that it is. The pro-life movement is about 0 for 8 on these ballot measures, and it's not a surprise. Sometimes we just ask ourselves, how could people vote for these things? Well, I tell you, if somebody lies at you for $50 million in 6 months, it might kind of sink in. And that's what's happening. People like us who think about abortion a lot can dig into the lies and do it very easily. But if you're just Joe Blow, yeah, you're a conservative, you're a Republican, you can say, yeah, I don't think abortion's good. But you don't think about abortion very much because the United States, as American people, have not had to think about abortion very much. You just listen to what you're told. And if you're told, if our movement is outspent 5 to 1, it's going to be really hard for us to deal with this. So we have in Montana, that is Montana, Arizona, South Dakota, Nebraska, Missouri, Arkansas, and Florida. Hey, I went to public school too. I'm pretty proud of myself. All of these are very pro-life states. One of the problems that we have found is that we've just equated Republican with pro-life. And it turns out that's not always true. And the example that we point to a lot is, because it's the most recent, is Ohio. And in exit polling, we found that 94% of Democrats voted in favor of it. 70% of Republicans opposed it. When you're losing 30% of your base, that's a problem. That goes back to the conversations that we have to continue to have. This is a hard thing to talk about, as Lisa was mentioning. It's really hard to have these conversations, but we have to. We have the ability, and because of that ability, we have the responsibility to educate people about what abortion is and what the laws actually are. Now, you are not red on this map yet, but I would not be surprised if you're red in 2 years. And the reason I say that is, like I said, I have the whole western half of the United States, and so 4 of these states are in my region. But even there, even in all of those states, I have not heard as much misinformation just badgering people as I have seen here. The number of lies that are going about your law is happening right now, and you don't even have anything on the ballot. That's concerning to me. So, this is a challenge. Let me give you just a couple suggestions that you can do right now, start doing right now. One is, we have to unite. It's very easy to be frustrated with another person or another group who you think is doing the wrong thing, or has gone about it the wrong way. Those differences must melt away. And when and if this comes to you, you must be united as a movement. That is the only way that we can stay together and win. Because if we are divided, and we get divided a lot, if we're divided, they will remain united. That's number one. Number two, start identifying your leaders. Who are the people who are going to fight this? Start thinking about what that campaign is going to look like. And three, this is the big one, start identifying rich people. Because I can tell you, there's not any national money coming in to fix this. When I come to a coalition meeting in the state, they're always so excited to see me because they think I have a check in my back pocket. And I can tell you, we don't have Soros money. We don't have Amazon money. But they do. So start identifying pro-life donors who are going to be supportive. And I think that was it. Yeah, start identifying pro-life donors who are going to be supportive, and start having those initial conversations with them. Now I just want to talk about quickly some things, some policy ideas as we're going forward, right? There's fewer abortions, which means there's more babies and more moms. But those moms that may have found themselves thinking about abortion and just not being able to get one, they're probably going to need some help. So this really comes into a good light while you're thinking about your fighting ballot measures. Because you can then point to, here's all the awesome stuff that we're doing for women. We're part of the solution. The answer to the pregnancy is never the problem. The problem is the problem. Let's fix the problem. The pregnancy is not the problem. So what's the problem? We're here to fix the problem. So here's some ideas. Just what some other states have done. And I'm not going in this order because they don't make sense in that order. I'm going to go in a different order. I want to start with Texas. Texas and a number of other states, they have decided they're going to reach out to pregnant health organizations and other pro-life organizations and just infuse money into them. State money, right into them. Right in the arm. That is certainly the quickest, fastest way to get pro-life organizations money. However, there are many organizations who do not like the idea of taking government money. And there's a number of organizations who actually have it in their charter that they will not take government money, which is understandable because government money can go away. And if you're entirely funded or mostly funded on government money and it goes away, you are up a creek without a paddle. So there are states who do this, but they tend to connect it to some of these other ideas. For example, Missouri created tax credits for those who donate to pro-life organizations, mostly pregnancy help organizations. Now you guys, I believe, do not have income tax, right? You do have income tax. I'm sorry, I just got some people's hopes up. So that's one option. Instead of sending your money to the government, you can send part of your money, part of your state income tax requirements to a pregnancy help organization. We can get the businesses on board as well. There's no corporation who doesn't like a corporate tax break. So that's another option. Georgia did something that was really interesting in that they recognize that a woman who is in trouble in housing or they're housing insecure has over 50% higher chance of having an abortion. They are more abortion-minded if they don't think they have a place to live. Unfortunately, what they found is they were trying to encourage maternity homes to come in, that the conservative state government was trying to encourage maternity homes to open. Liberal city governments realized that they were pro-life and were throwing up red tape in front of them and trying to stop them from coming in. So the state of Georgia said, no. If you are a maternity home, you're opening up and you can open up in a residential area, as long as you meet the parking regulations. Yeah, no city can exempt from that. So those are a few. One thing I want to bring up, because of the Supreme Court the decision that came down today on your EMTALA suit, kicking it back down to the Ninth Circuit, is there's probably going to be some confusion around your laws, right? Shouldn't be, but there's probably going to be some confusion by some folks in the left and some folks in the media. And one attack that we did in South Dakota was actually passing what we called medical education. And what this did was it instructed the Department of Health to create educational information for medical professionals to make sure that they are actually being told by the government what the law is, that they needn't worry about being prosecuted or anything like that, because the law doesn't say that. The American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs has also just is just about to launch a continuing medical education credit system. So South Dakota will be partnering these two together. Well, they'll make sure that every doctor has access to these training materials. They're also going to be able to push them for those doctors who want CME and who want some additional deeper information diving into it. That will be available to them as well. So that might be something to be that you might want to consider as well. Because it's not just telling doctors that here's what your law is, it's making sure that the public knows that the doctors know what the law is. So, I've talked a lot, and I know that most of the favorite part of all of this is getting to ask me questions that I may or may not know the answers to. So, I'm happy to answer any questions. You can raise your hand, yell it at me, and I'll repeat it for those who may not be able to hear. Lisa.
One that everyone's probably thinking. So for those who don't know what a ballot measure is, can you explain it to them?
Those who don't know what a ballot measure is, can you explain it to them? Yes. Many states, although not all, have the ability for the people to actually put something to a vote as a question on a ballot. Every state does it a little bit differently. In many of the states that you saw there, it's very easy to get on the ballot, especially for constitutional questions. That's usually done by collecting a number of signatures of registered voters. Now, you guys in Idaho have a different situation, and when you're trying to change your constitution, in that I believe that in order to once a vote has been taken, your legislature has to confirm it. So, in theory, a constitutional amendment could pass and the legislature could veto it. Now that takes some political fortitude, but you could. They could also collect signatures for a statutory change, so not a change in the Constitution, just a change in the law. But again, since the legislature can change the law, the legislature could just come back the next day and change the law. Now there are some political issues to that. If, for example, if it were to pass by 20 points, even the most conservative legislators might have a hard time overturning that. If it passes by 2 points, that's a different issue. Anyone else?
Yeah, could you speak a little bit more about what the Supreme Court decision was today regarding
Sure.
Idaho?
I should make Megan come up here and do that. Yeah.
I don't think they handed it down.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I should clarify.
They pulled it back. Go ahead.
Megan, please feel free to I'm going to agree on the layman issue. First of all, this has not come down today. This issue did not come down today. It was leaked. They got a real problem over there.
Yeah, they do.
They said it was inadvertently posted. I call BS on that because it was not formulated as an opinion. It looked like an email. So anyway, what it said was essentially handing it back down to the Ninth Circuit. So they did not necessarily make a ruling, assuming that that's actually what it is, on the issue. But so your EMTALA suit will go back down to the Ninth Circuit. I believe that's going to be done en banc, so the whole court will vote on it. That could be appealed right back up to the Supreme Court. And so essentially the can was kicked down the road. That'd be a fair estimate. I'm trying to do non-lawyer, not a lawyer, and I'm trying to do non-lawyer talk for those of us who are not lawyers here, but if there's something I'm missing there, I'm not. I'm not proud.
You got it.
Okay. Talk to Megan though, if you do want to have more information about that, do see Megan. She knows a lot about that case. Yes. Anybody else? Yes,
I
ma'am.
had a question about the states that have the tax break for the businesses.
Oh, sure.
What happens, is there an influx of people then boycotting these businesses and whatnot?
Not that we've seen. There's generally very few people who actually dig that far into who has given tax credit, tax donations to these organizations. At least I have not seen any news reports on it, and I would expect the mainstream media would make sure I knew about it. Megan?
I can't remember which state it is, but I think, is there one state that has a ballot measure from the pro-abortion side and then a counter?
Well,
ballot measure?
that happens to be Nebraska.
Okay, I thought it might be. Can you update us? How is it going? I don't know when November
Sure. So, Megan asked, is there a state that has a pro-life ballot measure and a pro-abortion ballot measure? And the answer is yes, and it happens to be Nebraska, where I live. As I mentioned, Nebraska passed a 12-week protection, and they decided that they were going to, I thought 12 weeks they weren't going to bother, because really 12 weeks only reduced abortions by like 11%. I mean, it was 11%. I mean, it's important, but I mean, I just didn't think they were going to spend the money and the time to do it. Well, they did, and they are collecting signatures right now. Now, I think one thing that we realized that we had to do something different. We had to do something different than Ohio. We had to do something different than Kansas. We can't just pro-life harder. It wasn't working. So we had to do something different. So we came up with this idea that why don't we just refer our law, the law that we have right now, to the ballot. And what that does is it creates a new binary choice. Because Planned Parenthood and ACLU has done a really good job of trying to make this a binary choice of 0 abortions or some abortions. And if every poll you look at, if faced with those two choices, 70% of people are going to go some abortions. That's just the political reality we're in right now. That's the binary choice that they created. It's not true, but that's the binary choice they created. So by doing this, we were creating a new binary choice: unlimited abortions or abortions in the first trimester. And when you pull those two together, abortions in the first trimester wins. And it also created a different opportunity, a new way for us to win. Because if we both lose, we win. If our ballot measure wins and theirs loses, we win. If they both pass somehow, whoever gets the most votes total wins. So we could still possibly win. So it created new pathways of winning. I would not encourage any state to enter into that lightly. We spent 6 months crafting language with Alliance Defending Freedom. We polled it, we sent it to the Catholic Medical Bioethics Center. We sent it to theologians, we sent it to other attorneys. We spent a long time on that. I would not recommend just tossing something on the ballot and seeing if it works. We also are very fortunate that our former governor and our senators' family are billionaires. So he was able to fund both of these fairly well. So certainly an option, especially if this works. I think a lot of states will be thinking about it. I think some states that have just passed pro-abortion constitutional amendments will start thinking about doing it that way. But I just would caution anyone from doing it just like our legislature referring it to the ballot and saying, let's see what happens. It definitely has to be thought out. Sir?
So you're responsible for a lot of states. How do you divide your time? What kind of factors cause you to focus on certain states for certain reasons?
It depends on the situation at the time. So not all of my states are in session all of the time, and not all of my states have a pro-life bill up all of the time. So I was involved when the trigger fix, as it was said, was being talked about, so I was here. I've been talking with some folks about a possible medical education bill when so I'm here. I do a lot of things by Zoom and Teams and things like that. I'm very fortunate that I can drive to like 5 of my state capitals. So it really just depends on who's doing what and when and who's asked me to come. It seems to me, Anthony, we're very careful about coming to places when we're not wanted. And there are some states, some organizations who just don't want us there. We're here to be, we don't want to ever open any chapters or anything or compete with Right to Life or anything. We don't want to do any of that. We just want to be in the background supporting and giving the resources that the in-state groups need. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to the idea of being united? Like maybe with some states, for example, that have coalitions,
Yeah.
different pregnancy organizations?
Sure. So being united, there are some states, so I would say a number of my states actually have a pro-life coalition. They might be made up of the Family Policy Institute, Right to Life, a Catholic Conference, maybe a pregnancy resource center that has kind of some policy ideas, and they meet fairly regularly to plan what their legislative agenda is going to be and to kind of plan their fight against the pro-abortion side. Not only does that divide up the amount of work that you have to do, but it builds relationships and friendships and trust. And that's incredibly important, because if you're fighting amongst these groups, you don't have trust, and when you have a situation like a ballot measure, you have to be together, because we cannot do this separately. We're having a hard time doing it together, but we definitely can't do it separately. Now, when you mentioned pregnancy help groups, a number of states have formed pregnancy care alliance sorts of things where we found that a lot of pregnancy help organizations are very wary of wanting to be public. And hey, if my place is being firebombed every other day, I'd probably want to be kind of private too. But the reality is that they are dealing with public policy. They're having to. And they're wanting to kind of bounce ideas off of each other. I think a pregnancy care alliance, something that is an alliance or coalition of pregnancy help organizations, is a really, really good thing. And if that becomes formal, like a formal group, then that kind of takes some of the pressure off of the individual groups to do the public policy forward-facing thing.
Work with in Idaho, and then do you follow their motions as they push through that legislation?
Like names?
Yes.
Ooh, I better be careful.
I asked because it's important for us to know who they're backing in this area.
Sure, I would say, I work with everyone. I work with anybody who will talk to me until you stab me in the back. And then I won't work with you anymore. So there's a legislator in, for example, in South Dakota who I've fought before, but she took this medical education bill as something she really liked. So I'm willing to work with those folks. If I ever can politically work with her or politically have an opportunity to take her out, I will. But at that point, I was supportive. I have not run into any legislators that well, that's not true. Most legislators that I worked with here in Idaho, I've had really good relationships with. Legislators are also working on many fronts. So I also have to remember that when they don't call me back for a couple of days, it might be because they have a giant tax bill that's up that's taking up their attention. So I have to remember that. I've had a really good relationship with Representative Crane on a number of things. He and I have talked on a number of occasions. Senator Winder, I know he's not going to be in the legislature anymore, but he and I talked quite a bit. But I tend to work a little bit less with legislators and more with groups like you guys to support you, because you guys your lobbyists have the relationship with the legislators. So it would probably a better use of my time to go and support Megan, who's going to go to the Capitol, who already has all the relationships with the legislators. I'll come with her if she thinks it's useful, but it's better for me to support the work that she does. It's a better use of my resources. But I'll let you know if I ever find somebody that I got a big problem with. I will kind of use that to give a little bit of a warning. We are seeing in a number of states, including Idaho, an influx of what we call abolitionists. Certainly all of us want no abortion whatsoever, but the line that we will draw, our organization will draw, is criminal punishments for women who have had abortions. Over 70% of women are coerced into having an abortion, one way or another. We need to deal with that before we go into anything like criminal prosecutions of women. So there may be folks who disagree with me on that, but I can tell you on a political level, that is not a popular stance to have. So we're very, very careful of that. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want.
Good.
With the upcoming presidential elections, will, depending on who gets elected presidents, have a major impact on pro-life movement?
Oh, yeah. Yes, the question is who is elected president will have a major impact on the on pro-life work. Yes. The current fellow who is in the White House is not friendly to us. And so we have dedicated our time. We plan to, we have a goal. We have field teams out amongst the swing states, the battleground states. We intend to hit 4 million doors by the end of the cycle and touch 10 million pro-life voters, particularly focusing on low propensity voters, those who are identified pro-life but may not vote all the time. We want to make sure that they're getting out and they're voting. Because the realization is that if Joe Biden is reelected and the Congress goes into the hands of both sides of the Democrats, Chuck Schumer will blow up the filibuster. He will pass the Women's Health Protection Act, and we will have abortion up to birth in all 50 states. That will happen. I guarantee you 100%. I will buy every person here a drink if that doesn't happen. So, yes, to answer your question, yes, we are very involved, and if, I hate this saying, but this time it's true. This is the most consequential election of our lives, especially on this issue. And if Joe Biden is elected president, we are, especially if we lose the Senate and the House, we are all in big, big trouble. Sir?
Do you think on that same line, they would, if Joe Biden did get reelected, the next step would be to follow with the euthanasia?
I can't speak to that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm speaking out of turn because we are a one-issue organization. I'll put that asterisk on that. But my guess would be it would be more towards gender transitioning.
What was the question?
The question was if Joe Biden did win in the White House and Congress, would he move towards also working in euthanasia and making euthanasia legal? And it wouldn't surprise me, but I think the direction that his base would push him more quickly towards his gender transition and gender theory. Anybody else? Oh, sorry.
One quick question, along the lines of uniting. One of the things that strikes me to be useful is if we decided what we could unite around, right? And one of the fundamental principles that is in agreement with most people I've talked to is that the mother and the child should be of equal value.
Mm-hmm.
When we can totally agree with that lends credibility to just about a lot of positions that we've taken. It also gives us a lot of leverage. One of the things that we lack, I think, from the pro-life side, is we don't focus enough on the leverage that we do have.
Certainly. Yeah. So I think the question is that around the idea of uniting, we need something to unite around. And I think that's very true, making sure that we certainly want to save the baby, but we've got to take care of the mom too. We have to do those two things. Quite frankly, if you take a look at most of the polling, care around the mom takes a much bigger significance than care around the baby. I hate that, but it's a political reality. And I think another thing that you can kind of come together on is quite frankly fear. You can say, well, I don't like that bill you ran, I don't like that bill you ran, well, I don't like that bill you ran, I don't like the bill you ran. You're not going to run any more bills if that thing passes. Or you're going to be biting around the edges like we were during the reign of Roe. So we all need to put our differences behind us and work on this together. So I found fear a great motivator. Again, fear of defeat, agony of defeat, people. Anybody else? I don't know how much more time we have. Oh, yes.
So this bill right now, that we have a lawsuit on,
Mm-hmm.
it's about the life of the mother. But don't we protect the life of the mother anyway?
Megan? It's particularly around the wording of that and how that wording ties to EMTALA, a federal law. So the question is, does the wording that you have, is it strong enough and match the strength of the federal law? That's essentially the question. And we don't have an answer. We didn't get an answer to this. I was looking forward to a giant slapdown, but we didn't get that. Anyone else? It's a weeknight, so I don't want to keep folks up too late. Yes, ma'am. Sure. The Charlotte Lozier Institute is the 501c3 arm, the research arm of the Pro-Life America. If you've been following in the Supreme Court cases at all, you might have heard the name Dr. Ingrid Skopp. Dr. Skopp is our Vice President of Medical Affairs, so we work with her quite a bit. It is churning out research papers, peer-reviewed research papers on issues around life all the time. So I encourage you to go to lozierinstitute.org. Go to lozierinstitute.org, and you can just kind of peruse around. There's reporting data, abortion reporting data, how many abortions were here this year, how many abortions this year, how many abortions this year by the state, and any sort of abortion data, research data that's provided publicly, we get and put into a report. So I really encourage you, that abortiondrugsact.com, if you go to that, you'll be able to find a link back to the Lozier website very easily. So. Sir.
One of your previous slides, you had 900,000 abortions in 2020, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any, other than guessing, is there any real way to track the chemical abortions that are taking place?
It's very hard because we don't know where these pills are coming from. We do our best with the reporting, but one of the big problems is it seems that every time a Democratic president takes office, the reporting goes down.
Yeah.
So when people say, when we have some from the left saying, well, we don't have this many abortions, we don't have that many abortions, we don't have this many abortions, we don't know, because they don't tell us, because they're not asking. One of the benefits, the only benefit perhaps of socialized medicine is they actually report things. So a great place to find abortion data is Sweden. And if you go take a look at some of their data, it is quite telling of what a chemical abortion is doing. They're getting the hook. So I can do one more. Anybody else? Well, friends, I would like to ask you finally, there's three things that we need from you. It's kind of a church talk. You heard the time, talent, treasure talk? Well, you're going to get it now. We need your time. If you can stuff envelopes for an hour, if you can help organize events, things like that, get a hold of Right to Life, get a hold of other pro-life organizations, those PHOs, and tell them I can give you an hour. We need your talent. Is there something that you're good at? Are you a doctor? The other side lines up their white coats all the time. I'm sure half of them are veterinarians, but they're in white coats. Are you a doctor and willing to testify in front of the legislature? We need the talents that you have for this movement, especially if you have a ballot measure coming forward. And like I said, we don't have Soros money. We need your treasure. We're all in this together, and this is a uniting. This is a uniting moment. The raising money for these sort of things, especially ballot measures, is so hard. So when you have the opportunity to give to an organization, especially who's doing political work, please do it. You can give to us, but you don't have to. I'd rather, honestly, you do it with the in-state groups. So really encourage you to think about what you can give in your time, talent, treasure, and continue to do the awesome work of keeping Idaho a pro-life state. So thank you very much, everyone.
I'm going to turn this over to Lisa momentarily. I do want everyone to pick up, and there's an envelope on your table for each one of you. And on that envelope, there is, I just want to explain what this is real quick so that it makes sense to you. And so it's kind of collective for you, each one person. What it does, at the top it talks about the dessert. We're going to talk about dessert shortly. And then the stars is with regard to, in addition to the dessert that we are going to offer, I'll turn this over to Lisa, but and there'll be any additional donation you want, and if there's anything other to cover the cost of the meal or whatever. But I just want to let you know to put your name on the envelope, on the back, and include your address and your email address, so that we know who you are and we can make you a part of this organization if we don't have your name. Just to keep you informed of what's going on in the legislature, in the courts, and elsewhere, so that you can be informed of what to do. So that'd be very helpful if you put your name, your email address, and your mailing address on the back of the envelope. So, Lisa, if you're ready, if you're not, I want to thank Adam for his presentation because it's really good. I'm really excited about the PHOs. You know, Idaho has, I think, 22 PHOs in Idaho throughout. A few years ago, we didn't have a lot of them, but they've exploded in time, and they're very much in the work in the rural areas and very much a part of the issue of providing services to women who are pregnant. It's a really fantastic endeavor, and these are men and women who engage the local community, and are so important to the success of the pro-life movement in our society here in Idaho. And it's part of the success that we've dealt with here as part of the pro-life movement here in Idaho. So I was excited to see that we have so many across the United States. Thank you. Be right back. Oh, Lisa.
Okay, at this time we're going to have our dessert dash. So I'm going to do a little explanation. I handed out these cards to your tables. So I hope I got every table one of these. If you didn't, please raise your hand and let me know. First, I just want to thank Jackie Wakefield and a group of pro-life women that she was able to gather to prepare the desserts that we're kind of auctioning off in a sense tonight. Yes, thank you. Some of them weren't even able to come tonight, but they are pro-life and wanted to be a part of it in this way, so we're grateful for that contribution. So you all have the dessert card, and you can kind of pass it around your tables. And how this will work is we're going to play a song, and you can fill it out during the song. And then at the end, we will collect these cards, and the highest bidding table gets to pick their dessert first. And then the second and third and so on. So we'll collect these, we'll figure out who the winners are, and then your table, so you're gonna wanna designate a runner for your table, and that will be the person who goes and chooses the dessert, and you'll have, depends on how quick you can be, but maybe 45 seconds or so to pick your dessert, and then your table gets to enjoy it, and then John will come back up and kind of give some closing remarks as well. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Any questions, just let us know. So I'm going to go ahead and play the song. The Galaxy team here will collect your dinner plates, and then we'll just have a chance to enjoy our dessert as well.
Thank you for joining us. This is the end of part 2.